Professor Ramshankar Dubeji, my dear friend and well-known media academician, Professor Atanu Mahapatra, my esteemed fellow panelists, greetings from Asia's first and India's largest media university and the city of lakes, Bhopal. Congratulations for organizing yet another interesting session on a very important topic of the day, that's misinformation, fake news and misinformation issues and solutions. We have been talking about fake news for pretty long time, and it's been there in some or the other form with us for a long time. If you remember, during Nazi days, we had the Goebbelsian propaganda. That is how Hitler used propaganda against not only his enemies but also his own people, the Jewish people, and sought to project the Jews as enemies of the German nation and put them in concentration camps. The German nation unwillingly, a large section, got influenced and supported the dictator at that time. So that is the kind of impact that fake news, fake narratives, misinformation, disinformation can create. I don't intend to deal, at length with the details of which my learned friends, my fellow panelists have already done it in detail of how to identify fake news and all that. I will try to present you an overview of the situation as it prevails now. We need to understand, because I've been a practicing journalist for the last several decades. I've been a media academician and now an academic administrator. So in different capacities, I have seen fake news, or I have a problem with the concept of fake news itself, because I believe that news cannot be fake. It is fake content, because news is a product, processed product, and a lot of checks and balances goes into the process of news, checking, cross-checking, sourcing, verification, cross-verification. Only then it a raw information or a tip-off converts into news. It's not so not anybody and everybody can be generating news. The same way I have a problem with the entire concept of citizen journalists, which we have blindly imported from the West, because you cannot have a citizen journalist in the same way you cannot have a citizen doctor or a citizen engineer. Journalism is a skill which need to be imparted in media schools, the way you impart medicine, the way you impart engineering, the way you impart management. This is something that you need to impart. These are journalistic skills that are required. Just because you know how to handle a mobile phone or to write a few sentences does not qualify you to use the term journalist. Just like anybody cannot claim to be a doctor just because or just because somebody knows a little bit, and most of us Indians know about a little bit about medicines, so on the basis of that you cannot become a doctor. So the way you cannot have citizen doctors and citizen engineers, you cannot have citizen journalists, because that gives respectability to a lot of misinformation and disinformation, because you say that's citizen journalism. Well, that's not journalism. You can be citizen content creators, you can be citizen communicators, but you cannot be citizen journalists. The same way you cannot have fake news. I mean, you cannot have a fake policeman. Either he is an imposter, so he's not a policeman, right? So similarly, you have fake content. Anyways, now misinformation you have talked about misinformation. It can happen due to many reasons. Please understand that there is a distinction between misinformation and disinformation, but when it comes to the consequences, they are almost same. Misinformation is generally attributed to I would say that somebody passes on an information out of innocence. He's not aware. So I get a WhatsApp message saying that, one of the during this pandemic, infodemic, what you call the overdose of information, which both the earlier speakers referred to. In India, one of those, very, very, I would say, popular WhatsApp messages was that you need to put only 2 drops of lemon juice into your nostrils and you can get rid of COVID-19. Now, that ICMR, PIB, they have all come out clearly saying that that's fake. So when that's fake, but people got it and people passed on to friends and relatives. The intent was noble. The intent was pure. That if we can help out a fellow. So the objective was not mischief. I had very educated friends who would tell me that, as a preventive measure, put 2 drops into your nostril, because some Ayurveda doctor, supposedly or allegedly, somebody has been talking, on a video which has gone viral. So now that is something which is misinformation out of ignorance, but out of a good intent that, okay, you may get cured, it may prove helpful to you. It can also happen with journalists also sometimes very unintentionally pass on misinformation. One is because they don't follow the journalistic principles. Not because they are deliberately doing it, because they don't follow the journalist principles, the fundamental principles of truth, accuracy and objectivity. Truth you can get when you go to the ground. But these days it's become fashionable that you sit in air-conditioned rooms and prefer not to go out and dish out whatever you get through press releases or any other information without checking, cross-checking, verifying, cross-verifying. You don't go to ground zero. Now, obviously truth becomes a casualty. I know everywhere it is not possible. But then the telephone is there. You can always pick up the phone and cross-check with 4 people. You need not. If for any reason, the ideal thing is to do ground reporting. For any reason, if you are not able to reach, obviously the best thing is to pick up your phone, call up people. Today people are available, on the phone. You are not dependent on the, landlines. You are not dependent on any other thing. You can pick up the phone. And sourcing is very critical, but people are no more, so all kinds of sourcing, reliable sources close to this thing, official sources, unofficial sources. The real sourcing that needs to be done, that's not being done. The attribution that has to be made, that's not being made. When we did our journalism over, say, 3 decades back, we were taught certain, rules of the game. We would never, take a stand on a particular news item in the sense that we won't say that this is true, right? So we used to use words like claimed, alleged, accused. So when we are saying that they alleged, so I am saying that it's an allegation. So it necessarily is not the truth. But when the moment I am saying said, it can be the truth. There is a possibility of it being the truth. Whereas there is a very strong element of skepticism when I say it's an allegation that's been made. Say suppose there is a fake encounter or a custodial death or a custodial rape or something like that. You attribute it to the police, saying that police said that, whereas one can always say that the police claimed. This is a claim made by the police, because the conviction is always done by the court of law. But this trial by media which has been happening, we have been convicting a lot of people on primetime television debates. So what is important is that we use these safe terms that adds credibility, lends credibility to journalism. So that's important. Truth. You need to go deep into the stories. Today it's a superficial approach that you take to. You don't you do a random Google search and pick up whatever you get on the first page. You should know that the content that appears on the first page are certainly promoted through search engine optimization. So perhaps the real content is deep down somewhere in the 5th or 7th or 20th page. But we don't have the patience. So we pick up whatever comes handy and we think that, well, this is it. It just takes a call. You need to, pick up from the right sources. Now, if you want to know what is my, profile, you need not go to Wikipedia for my profile. I'm the Vice Chancellor of a university, and certainly, there is a website of my university which has my profile. So which is more authentic? A user-generated Wikipedia profile, or is it my own university's authorized website? So obviously that is more authentic. So you need to go for that. So we have to first of all train ourselves that we go to authorized websites for information, authentic websites, rather than use user-generated content when we are passing on information, when we are sharing information. Accuracy, data. What is the kind of accuracy? Are we relying, or do we cross-check? Suppose there is a fire incident in your city. Now, I as a reporter, I would cross-check with the fire brigade, and I will double cross-check with the hospital authorities to ensure that the statistics that I put out, whether regarding death or casualties or injuries, it is almost correct. That is my effort. But if I am going to believe in what an eyewitness is going to say, oh, hundreds have died, I can't do it like that. Because please remember, there have been people miraculously escaping even from air crash. So if that can happen, road accidents, railway accidents, one can really go off the mark if you base it on speculation or eyewitness accounts. Eyewitness can be for the details, how the accident took place, but eyewitness cannot give you the right data. For that, the authorities are there, the railway authorities are there, the hospital authorities are there, the rescue authorities are there, the NDRF teams are there. These are the sources. So are we doing the right kind of sourcing? So that ensures that you provide authentic information. The third aspect is that so truth, accuracy, and then objectivity. Objectivity is when you put out all the versions of the story, all sides of the story, all aspects, all facets. But when you do a unidimensional story, please remember that like every coin has two sides, similarly every story also has different aspects and dimensions, and we need to understand that. Once we understand those dimensions, we have to, only then we should be putting it out, at least to understand why. Otherwise it turns out to be a unidimensional, and sometimes it can become a fake content. Now, misinformation, if you ask me, on the part of the journalists, when it happens, it is because of not following the standard operating procedures, SOPs, that a good journalist should follow, the fundamental principles of journalism which need to be followed. But when it comes from citizens, ordinary citizens, misinformation is mostly out of concern, out of curiosity, when they innocently forward some information. Now let me come to disinformation. Now disinformation is something that we need to understand is a deliberate exercise. Now that can be for commercial reasons, because somebody wants to drive traffic to their websites. It can be due to some agenda that is it's agenda driven. So it could be political, ideological agenda that's being driven. So people can put out a certain version of a story, without giving the complete story, half-baked story, what you call it, ardha satya. That can be a half-baked story can be presented because of deliberately suppressing some information, selectively taking passages, selectively taking quotes, and then giving it out because you have an agenda to pursue. So in pursuit of that agenda, you put out a story. So one is for commercial reason, other it could be for political, ideological reasons. That's there. The third is the cyber. Now this is an integral part of strategic communication. And during the Cold War, we have seen the Americans and the Russians doing it. The Chinese have been doing it for a pretty long time. So cyber is a psychological war. The idea is to demotivate a section of the society and provoke another section of the society. So when a Pakistan, does a story, the whole idea is that, say on Kashmir, they have to project, that the Indian army is a machinery which only indulges in atrocities, and that the people are suppressed, the people are oppressed. That kind of a narrative they have to build. So they will create always a story like that. They will use all kinds of morphed photographs, doctored audios, manipulated videos, because they have a mischief in mind, and that is to provoke, to incite people to violence and to terror. So they pick up a narrative without ever mentioning the kind of atrocities that is taking place in their own country against the Baloch, against the Sindhis, against the Muhajirs. That they won't mention. They will only talk about the so-called alleged oppression of a section of population in India. So this is cyber, wherein they tend to set out a narrative of oppression and suppression, and to demotivate somehow, and you have seen it even during the farmers' agitation recently, that there were foreign handles. Now I'm not getting into the merits and demerits of the farmers' agitation. That's an altogether different debate. But it has been established conclusively that there were foreign social media handles which were used to provoke young farmers in Punjab, to incite them to violence. Provocative stories were put out, and this has been conclusively established. Now, these mischief makers are on the prowl on the internet. Now they tend to, whether it is to promote Naxalism, Maoist violence, to promote separatism, say in Northeast, these kind of elements, the terrorist outfits to recruit young minds, to brainwash them. So a lot of disinformation is put out. So that's another aspect, wherein the whole idea is to again divide the people, to incite violence, to create social unrest, to derail the economy, All kinds of stories are put out. Now, this is disinformation deliberately put out. And this too has been going on for a long time. And then of course there are aspects which we have been in media and media education dealing with, such as, say for example, paid news. So paid news is again a form of disinformation, I would say, because you know very well that this information, whether by a political party or a corporate entity, is not correct. But in spite of that, you put it out for the sake of money. So you had ridiculous situations during the few years back, during the Punjab elections or Maharashtra elections, so much so that the EC had to take cognizance of it, Election Commission, and that was on one page of the newspaper you had stories which said that a particular candidate is winning, and in the inside page their own reporter's story which said that the candidate is facing imminent defeat, or a rally was hugely successful in one page of the same newspaper, and in the other page it said that it was a big flop. So now this is this erodes the credibility of the media itself when you have these kind of stories, same stories word to word published simultaneously in newspapers based on a single handout provided by a political leader, and it came out very well. I need not get into the details. Now this happens. You had in episodes like the Radia tapes, where you saw some of the big names in Indian media who were kind of victims, who in fact manipulated the narrative to project certain things because they were keen about promoting some people as ministers and etc. Now there were also instances where what you call sweat equity. You have companies, I don't want to name them, which came out openly and they would support certain corporate entities, their shares, they will promote their shares, IPOs and all that, and the whole idea is to promote a certain company, and in return you take equities, so which is called sweat equity. Now again, this is very harmful, not only for media but also for democracy, for the people, because you have turned news into a commodity, and that's what's happening when you underpay the journalists and the working journalist. When he is underpaid and he is forced to to collect advertisements, now this is when you compromise with the news, and the whole idea is when the media, which prior to independence was a mission, turns into a profession, and now they say that many of them have become acts of commission. So now the thing is that, now I'm not making any sweeping comments on the media. Media has been doing an exceptional job, I would say, and whether it was pre-independence when they actually worked for promoting independence of the country and for fighting the social evils, creating social awareness on key social issues, or building a new India post-independence, exposing corruption at high places, exposing atrocities. These have been wonderful work that has been done, but these are issues which we need to introspect as we move ahead. So misinformation and disinformation is not something that, you had yellow journalism in the past, so to blame digital media as if these things did not exist when print alone was there. I agree that even today print enjoys much more credibility, and that is because print has an editorial filtration process, a strong process in place where The printed word cannot be, withdrawn, unlike a flash on the television screen, or a digital story which can be withdrawn. Once it is printed, it's for all times to come. We still, have copies of the 1947 August 15th, that is still with us. We have so many historic events, we maintain the records, but that cannot be done with a digital story which may disappear overnight, a television flash which can be withdrawn anytime. So the printed word is something that cannot, it's like the spoken word, once it is out, it is out. So the credibility factor is much more important there. So obviously that is one reason that in spite of the digital making a big headway, and in spite of the print winding up in many countries, in India, print continues to buck the global trend and remain relevant for a majority of its readers. In fact, the latest statistics say that if 28% of the digital, the advertisement pie is going to the digital media, 25% is going to the print media. So that means print is still relevant, is alive and kicking in India. That's good. But the editorial processes, the office of the editor, the institution of the editor, that the sanctity has to be protected at any cost. You cannot have the commercial or the circulation or the advertisement department, overruling, the editorial. When that happens, then you can say that, fake information, fake content, disinformation, misinformation is being institutionalized in some or the other way, because if the editor's role is minimized. In fact, we have stories of how leading editors of newspapers in the West have for years together refused to even meet the circulation managers, because they knew that any discussion with the circulation manager would have an impact on the story and its reach. That's the kind of credibility something enjoys. So we need to understand that. Now, I know there is a limitation of time, and I'll try to wind up as fast as possible. Now, with this, my previous speakers have already spoken on this. The World Health Organization, UNESCO, United Nations Secretary General, they have all flagged their concerns about infodemic, the overdose of information, which is making it difficult for people to choose between the right and wrong content. And in countries like India, where videos are consumed maximum, where WhatsApp is perhaps the most popular social media platform, so much so that we call it the WhatsApp University. So a large number of people are dependent on them, and they are creating a lot of confusion in the society, so much so that last week in his Mann Ki Baat, the Honorable Prime Minister had to talk to, in my own state of Madhya Pradesh, he had to speak to a villager from Betul, and he tried to convince him on the need to vaccinate, and so that much is the concern, that because vaccine resistance is an issue, and this is not confined just to the rural pockets. We need to understand this. The other day I was listening to Devi Shetty of Narayana Hrudayalaya, one of the leading cardiologists of the country, who is also heading the COVID awareness committee in Karnataka. And there he was saying that in his own hospital, which is located in a posh locality of Bangalore, upmarket, there the people don't come for vaccination simply because there is vaccine resistance. They are hesitant about taking the vaccine because of all kinds of stories the anti-vaccinators have been spreading. You had stories like that within 2 years it was attributed to a Nobel laureate saying that within 2 years of your taking the vaccine you will die. Now this is the kind of stories that were spread, leading to a lot of vaccine hesitancy. So now that is a big thing. That's what the Prime Minister referred to, and so there is a need to bring out this. So you need an awareness campaign. So because the problem, the topic that you have chosen is issues and solutions. What are the solutions? So one, as I said, that so far as misinformation on the part of media houses and journalists are concerned, go back to the fundamentals, go back to the roots, follow the principles of journalism, checking, cross-checking, verifying, cross-verifying, truth, accuracy, objectivity, transparency. These have to be followed. But on a larger scale, I believe that, we should engage in, in fact, we should launch a national media literacy mission, wherein media literacy should be imparted right from the primary school curriculum, because students, because of the online education, right from students, they are getting exposed to everything, the dark net, cyber bullying, pornography, they are getting exposed. So we need to, and media literacy is not just about news media, it's about understanding media, So seeing media is different, understanding media is different. We need to understand that. So it's like seeing a movie and, appreciating, film appreciation is different from watching a movie, So what goes into the making of news and how to identify fake content. Some of the ideas have been shared by the previous speakers, on reverse image search and all the new technology, using your common sense. That's the most important thing, whether you can have a Chinese hoarding in Mumbai. This is simple common sense. You just zoom in a photograph, look at that, and that blast, the Kashmir blast photograph. Obviously, apart from the fact that in a blast you cannot have bodies without any damage, but also the fact that I could see even from a distance that some of the people who were standing by the side were wearing a lungi. Now obviously in Kashmir you don't see people using lungi, so it has to be either Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand or somewhere, some other Maoist affected area, rather than Kashmir. So these are the topic, the way that transport is. You can make out the local situation, whether it can be part of it. Now, so common sense, using common sense is most important. Then of course there are these verification tips that have been shared. So media literacy is important. We need to tell our students, and I know that, it's as important, if not more, than even sex education. I would say that it's as important. We tell our boys and girls about good touch and bad touch, and I think we should be telling them about how to identify the right content or the wrong content. And I'm not talking about any political ideological concern. I'm talking about going to the verified websites, verified social media handles, and stuff like that, sharing, liking, tweeting only what is only after verification, after cross-checking. These are things that need to be imparted, because a lot of things are going, I come across so many stories from my friends who are in police, who are in child welfare committees, who tell me about how young adolescent girls are being exploited through the dark net. Even today morning I was reading in Bhopal how somebody was befriended on Facebook and subsequently that woman was molested. So many stories of, even my own Facebook page was a duplicate page was created, a fake ID was created in my name, and people had started asking for money just few days back, till I and my friends reported it and got it blocked. Now this has been, so how do you ensure that media literacy is imparted? So you and I run media education departments, media colleges, media universities. We need to work with the community, at large. We need to work with us. So some media houses are certainly into identifying fake news, and all that stuff. Last point, because I know we are running out of time, I would like to listen to the Honorable Vice Chancellor also. Now, the thing is that please remember, there are PIB fact check handle and other, you have to go to the sources where World Health Organization, the state health ministries and Ministry of Health, ICMR, and all that. But also be a little wary of certain websites which also claim to fact check. They may be doing fact checking, I'm not denying that. But again, some of them are very choosy and very selective. You know, they have their own prejudices, they have their own biases. Some of the television channels have also their own biases. They, identify only stories which are, relating to a particular, party or a particular ideology or, particular political leaders. So you need to be wary of that also, because then again they are, giving a unidimensional picture, as if everybody else is putting out original things, and only the people they are targeting, only they are putting out fake. Because in this business, I'm sorry to say that, everybody is in the same boat, to put it very mildly. So to say that anybody is above board and everybody is doing it. And I have been personally seen it from very close quarters, that everybody indulges in that. Every stream, every thought process, they all people belonging to, irrespective of affiliations. So you cannot blame a particular thing or a particular media or a particular medium for, whether it is the social media alone is doing this. This has been happening for quite some time across media, but it has become very prominent because of the widespread availability of the digital content, thanks to, the mobile revolution which has taken place, the internet revolution that has taken place, that today it is going into every villages, and it can cause, violence, it can lead to divisions in the society, it can lead to vaccination resistance, it can have direct impact on the people's health. So the focus should be, solution would be, as I said, going back to the fundamentals, evidence-based reporting. This is when I was the Director General at Indian Institute of Mass Communication. We introduced India's first public health critical appraisal skills program, where we train journalists from across the country in evidence-based reporting. That's what we should be looking at, what is called Sakshi Adharit Patrakarita. That is important. So I think that the current polarization in the media also is a matter of concern, where you have more of pakshakars than patrakars, you have more of activists than factivists. What you need are facts, so these are things that we should keep in mind, and this is, at the end of the day, it's awareness among the media, the public, which is a viewer, which is a reader, which is a listener, who should be made more aware. And lastly, the one line that I want to add is that, you see, for a very strong democracy, you need a very enlightened, electorate. Similarly, for a strong and effective media, you need enlightened viewers, enlightened readers, and enlightened listeners. I'm sure that your seminar on fake news and misinformation issues and solutions would certainly contribute to creating a more aware, media-aware society. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much. Namaskar. I hope I have not exceeded my brief.